Hi, it's Steve and Jo from Fresh Agenda. And Steve, we're back with another update on the latest GDT and a little bit on US exports.
Yeah. So GDT was more action-packed than the last two boring events we've had. You can see there on the right the plenty of action in fats. We have been talking about a correction in fat prices for a little while.
Yeah.
The fundamentals are a lot weaker than what GDT suggested, and the values that people are talking about in the market are way under.
And you do wonder if it got pushed a little bit with a bit of extra product offered compared to last event?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a bit more there, and if you think you want prices to fall and you put it out there a few weeks and China's buying most and others are standing back, and then you really want the market to fall, you increase the volume. You get what you want. So
Supply and demand works.
yeah, speaking of supply and demand, I guess where this takes us to is an interesting position, because you can see that top right hand chart. This price has brought it back into about the mid-range of recent experience for China as a buying region. So whether that's run out or not, we're just having a bit of a pause. That'll be quite interesting. But elsewhere in the world, it's quite weak.
Yeah.
The net balance, we just added up March trade a little while ago, and our recent outlook went out. And that shows it's very weak. So fundamentals are poor, and this brings it back towards line. Interestingly, that comparison of butter and AMF values.
Yeah.
So
that's brought that back into alignment a bit, that discount for...
Yeah, it's actually right back to the long-term average. I mean, the long-term 3 years or so, the difference, we're back to that average. So that's comforting.
Yeah. So that's a discount for AMF, the fat equivalent of AMF.
Yeah, that's right.
Just to explain.
Look, China dominated the powders, and so I guess the thing, this is China's still buying quite well. Prices are bottomed and going up a little bit more. Is there acceptance of this value?
Yeah.
If you could see widespread other buying, you might believe that, but there's so little available for the other regions, and the volumes going outside China in these events are quite small.
Yeah.
So it could just be emergency coverage, but you couldn't draw a conclusion that the value is accepted globally and this is where we're going to settle for a while. I think that's a stretch.
Yeah, there's just not enough to know.
Yeah. Similar dominance in skim milk powder. And then you can see Southeast Asia again jumping around at the bottom.
Sure.
But values are pretty high for that region. Couple of interesting things, I think, here, that we've got the difference between selling prices. The margin came back a little bit. The premium for Oceania or New Zealand product over European and US product came back a little bit. The US actually had a better result than European powder.
Yeah, interesting.
Don't often see that. The other weird thing was, the first thing wasn't weird, I suppose. One of the boring things in GDT results is looking at the difference between instant and whole milk and regular whole milk powder.
Yeah, it's been pretty steady.
Ticks along between $95 and $100 per tonne each event. This time there was a plunge in the instant prices, so that's got to have a few people worried.
Yeah.
Got a strong plunge for both contracts offered. There wasn't much offered in those products this time, but the bit that was got clobbered.
One to watch.
Yes. US exports.
US exports were fairly strong for March. Highest proportion for quite a while. I think nearly 18 or just over 18% of national milk production for the month was exported in dairy products. Very encouraging sign for demand from Mexico in some of these numbers.
Yeah, the strongest for a little while.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen a small positives from Mexico year on year, that is. But also Southeast Asia well up.
Yeah.
Very strongly.
Yeah.
And improving share in China and North Africa. So they participated in a tender for Algeria, which boosted the volumes, but it's certainly helping tighten things up.
Yep.
So the US market rallied quite well after these came out. So that's it's more positive signs there. So that's pulling up the difference between, Europe and New Zealand values, and non-fat dry milk is up almost $3,000.
Sure. whey continues to be shipped to China.
Yeah, the growth was only 109%
Yeah.
over the prior year after some
Wow.
stronger months, so
Yeah.
no signs that that's waning yet.
No.
There's a lot of talk that it might, with ASF getting more traction in that country. We saw the first growth in year-on-year in cheese exports, first time since September. And a little bit of a cynical comment there, butter exports are exploding well off a tiny base.
Yeah.
In the last 3 months they've added an aggregate of not quite 6,000 tonnes, but promising.
Yeah, that's right.
And it will help.
Well, it's very cheaply priced compared to everywhere else at the moment, isn't it?
For now. Yeah.
For now.
Okay, Joe, chart of the week. You got a couple of things to look at here.
Yeah, look, a bit of an Australian-centric chart of the week this week. Just looking at the trends in retailer same-store sales, and as in lots of other countries, retailers did very well through lockdown with people eating at home, stocking up from time to time. We saw very strong same-store growth throughout 2020. And that's all come to a grinding halt in the last quarter. So the first quarter of 2021, those trends are well down. The retailers have flagged this. The dairy sector here got some hard-won price gains through 2020, but you just wonder with this loss in momentum whether the pressure's going to be back on margins again.
Yeah, so that's a quarter's change, that drop. But it must have been really bad in March, because really we didn't see lockdowns as everywhere. Didn't seem impacted until March. But I guess, one of the few big retailers to show this sort of granularity. I guess we're going to see this, as you said, around the world, and it's but this is quite dramatic in Australia, which had not really severe lockdowns.
No.
By any stretch.
Unless you're in Melbourne.
Unless you're in Melbourne, where we are. There is, there's a price war mooted. Dairy sector here and other countries will be looking at this with interest to see if there is, the household income impact of COVID, which is still really rolling out and being affected as subsidies and assistance wear off.
Yep.
And the employment reductions are, bared. So it'll be interesting to see if there is more pressure on prices and margins through this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because as we've seen here and as we've seen in other countries, the actual costs of food products, packaging, logistics, etc., has all gone up.
Yes.
And so suppliers are certainly after some clawback on that. Retailers are looking at these numbers and going, we're doing it a bit tougher.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a battle ahead.
Yeah.
And what else have you got?
Oh, the other thing, just to note, who would be a forecaster?
Who do that?
We often have a look at what the 3-month outlook is from the Bureau of Meteorology is here, and obviously it's a fairly critical time of the year in Australia. Lots of planting of crops going on, and this is the different maps for May to July, a week apart.
So let me get this right. There's tiny writing underneath that, which indicates they revised that view on the left. That came out a week earlier. That was a revision.
Yep.
Followed by another revision.
Yep.
You reckon they found some clouds? Or?
I think so. But, the rule of forecasting, which we also obey, if you're going to forecast often.
Yeah, that's quite a change.
That is quite a change. Anyway, more rain for Australia, so that's good news.
Yeah, the left-hand side was looking a bit grim, and we're at a bit of a knife edge in some regions.
We are, yeah. It's been very patchy across Australia. We've had flooding rains and drought conditions, just like the poem. But, this is a much improved outlook, so I'll take the one on the right.
Good. Okay. Terrific work. Okay, thank you for watching. We'll come back in a couple of weeks, but as of tomorrow, we're going to the beach.